Hey guys, welcome to another Solidworks tutorial. Today we will be doing another surface modeling demonstration. We will be also working with the Flex tool. The Flex tool I'll be going over more as we get to that part, but it's one of those unused by a lot of people tools. However, I do find that there are a few situations that it has come in handy, and I just wanted to show you a couple opportunities to use this tool, as well as going back into some more surfacing. So let's get started. First thing we want to do is open up a new part. We will be working in millimeters, so if you're not set to millimeters, make sure you do that. And the premise for this product is a napkin ring, or you could make it a regular ring, but those are the dimensions that I decided to start with. So once, as I do with everything, I work with the scale of the product that I'm designing. So a little bit of planning goes a long way, and I've done most of that work for you, but I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that, that I've done that planning ahead of time. So we're going to start with a sketch on the top plane. And we're just going to go with a center rectangle, starting on the origin. And we're going to dimension this 80 millimeters wide or long by 10 millimeters tall. All right. And we're going to go to our surfaces menu. If you don't have that, make sure you add the surface menu to your tabs by right clicking on it and have it checked. Okay. Now we're going to go to our planar surface. And since we're already in the sketch, it should populate this area, but if it's not, make sure you select the sketch and hit OK. All right. Now we need to draw the lines that are going to be our guides for the texture. So this design is really up to you, but I'm basing this design off of a couple other textures that I've seen online. So I have a pretty good idea of what I wanted ahead of time, but for this exercise, let's create, just kind of follow me. The first thing we want to do is create 3 lines. They're all going to be of equal length, so I can add that relation here. So select all lines and hit the equal relation. Oh, it is not letting me do that. Okay, I guess it is. All right, and then let's select the line in the origin and hit midpoint. And then we can make all of these points on the lines vertical. All right. And then we want to make, since we know this is 10 millimeters, what we want to do is make the gaps here, or the spacing between the edges and the lines, 2.5 millimeters. Same with this one, 2.5. And then we're going to make these lines 14 millimeters. Okay. Next thing we need to do is draw a circle. And the circle is going to, the center of the circle is going to be vertical to the edge point of the line. because we want it to be tangent. So if it doesn't automatically give you that relation, make sure you select both the circle and the line and give it a tangent relation. Okay. And we're just going to adjust that to where it looks good. I'm going to give this circle a dimension in a little bit, but let's first create a. Oh, sorry. First thing we need to do is offset this by 2.5. And we're going to do that a few times. We're basically going to be offsetting it until our circles reach close to the edge of this rectangle that we've created. So I'm just clicking on the last circle that's created. I'm offsetting it. And probably one more. All right, good. Now we can give this dimension a whole number, because we don't want to leave our dimensions where it's 16.17709. We like to, let's round up or down. Let's go 16. Okay. And then it's okay. Let's draw a center line from the center of the circles horizontally, and center line from the center of the circle vertically. Now what we can do is trim these entities. And I'm just holding down my left mouse button, clicking and dragging. All right. So it's okay if you get this. Typically what's happening and when you have an unsolvable sketch is you have too many conflicting dimensions. So in this situation, I'm going to assume that it's probably these, the fact that I have there's multiple dimensions that we can, they're telling me the same thing. So let's delete this. And then let's delete that. Okay. Now what we need to do is, okay, so we need to drag the center of this circle back to the center of all the other circles. Oh. Merge it. Let's see, concentric. Make sure those are concentric. Oop. And give this a 2.5 dimension here. There we go. And then we can, since these are all blue, what we can do is select this point of this circle and make a relation to this upper line of the rectangle. Give it a pierce. Oh, sorry, undo that. Give it a coincident. There we go. And there we go. The next thing we need to do is we need to circular pattern this feature or these circles, so it's shown on the other side. So what we can do is, let's see here. we want to do a circular sketch pattern. Let's choose our origin. Oh, it doesn't like that. Let's try giving that a point. Circular sketch. There we go. All right, I just had to add a point to my origin. And then the entities that we want to pattern are these circles. And we just want to do it twice. All right. So the number of instances 2. Everything else you should be able to keep as is. We want to make sure we're doing a 360-degree equal spacing. And voila. Okay. Now we can close this sketch. Now we need to create a plane that's similar to it's parallel to our right plane, but coincident to these points. So let's do that now. Let's do our reference geometry, new plane. And I already have my right plane selected, so it went ahead and filled in that first reference. And for my second reference, we can choose any of these points. Okay. Hit OK. Now what we need to do is let's create the profile of this surface finish, this texture that I'm adding. So let's create a new sketch on the plane we just created. I'm just hitting the space bar to rotate back down. There's so many lines going on here, it's a little confusing, so I might rotate my view just up a little bit. Okay. Now we need to create little arcs all the way across these lines here. So, actually, I think it's just... I think it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, it's probably, I think it's all of them. Okay. So, we only need to make one of these because we can just pattern it. So, let's draw a circle with the center of the circle above the plane. The dimension of it doesn't matter right now. And then let's select the edge of the circle and this point right here and hit coincident. And then let's add a point to our circle. Select that point and this edge and hit pierce. Now we also need to add a point to the bottom of our circle. And let's dimension this from the center line down to that point. Let's make it 0.1 or so. And you know, this is something that you can play with, but this is the depth of that channel that's going to give us this kind of wavy bone line. And then let's create a center line between these 2 points and use that as the trimming. Okay, so we only want this little arc here. Another method you could have done is using either like a 3-point arc or a tangent arc. You could go something like this. That might be a little faster. Something like that. So they're both that method is actually a little bit faster, but Now you know multiple ways to do it. All right. So I'm going to delete that because I only need one. And let's make sure we pattern this 10 times. So let's go to the linear sketch pattern. Change our distance to 2.5. And then our instance is going to be 10. And let's see, yeah, this is the X spacing. The X axis. All right. It's probably a pretty good time to save. Make sure, I always like to save sooner than later. So let's make our name surfacing ring and then your last name. Okay. All right. Now let's make a axis, center axis, because eventually we're going to do a circular pattern for the surfacing that we create. And you can't use a sketch for that, so we need to create a vertical axis. So let's do a sketch on, why am I playing so small? Okay, just need to see which ones are which. All right, so a front plane. Let's create a center line from the origin down. Doesn't matter how long it is. And let's see. Yeah, let's go ahead and exit the sketch or finish the sketch. And then we're going to go back into our features tab. Under reference geometry, we can create an axis. And choose that line that we just created and hit OK. And we can go ahead and hide that sketch that we created. All right. So axes are really good for any type of rotating or pattern or circular patterning of 3D objects. You can't use a sketch like you can in when you're making a circular pattern inside of a sketch. So this is just a tool that we're going to need to use later on. All right, let's go ahead and extrude our let's go ahead and extrude these 4 surfaces. So let's choose extrude surface. Selected contours, let's delete that and just choose, that's why I do all 4 of those, or all of them. That's okay, let's do it that way. And then we're gonna go up to Vertex, choose the point on the other side, and hit OK. And we don't need these, let's see, 6 surfaces, but we can get rid of them later. All right. Now let's go ahead and revolve. So using the same sketch that we just used for the extrude, let's choose revolved surface. And for our axis of revolution, oh, that's right. Okay. Sorry, I need to go back here and edit this real fast. We need to create a center line here as well. Make sure it's vertical. Okay, if you don't have the vertical relation, add it. This is just going to give us, it's going to give us our center point, our center line for when we revolve this surface, which we can actually do right now while we're in the sketch. Oh, never mind. We have to exit the sketch first. And then you can select the sketch, go under Surface, Revolve. There we go. And we only need to revolve it 90 degrees. Now let's flip that. Yeah. Hit OK. All right. The next thing we need to do is we need to take a split line, because we need to get for these faces here, we need to get a profile across the center here for when we make our loft. So let's go ahead and draw that on our top plane. Draw a line all the way to this one. And the reason this is already solid black is because it automatically created a relation to the origin. So if you don't have that, you can select the line and the origin and make sure you add a coincident relation. Okay. Now, while we're still in this sketch, we can go to Split Line. If you don't see that, it's over in the Features tab under Curves, Split Line. We're going to select these faces. And make sure you're under Projection, and hit OK. Okay. And we're going to do another split line, but this time we're going to use these sketches to split our surface plane that we made at the very beginning. So select that sketch, sketch number 2. Under Curves, go to Split Line. And then select the face of the rectangle. Hit OK. Interesting. So it looks like it didn't quite split it completely. All right, so I figured out what I need to do. It is a problem with when I pattern that sketch. So let's go back into this and let's go and fix. I'll show you how I fixed it. So we can leave this middle line and this circle here, but let's delete everything else. So let's select everything. This is a marquee select. And then we can Control left click that line and that arc here, and we can leave those two construction lines and those two construction lines and that dimension. Okay, and hit delete. So it should be only left with these two things here, or with these elements. All right, so now what we need to do is, it looks like I still have a pattern on here. Let's delete. You know what? I'm just going to delete that too. Let's kind of start fresh. Okay. So we can use our center point arc tool, save some time. click on the center. Let's click on our line and over there. Same thing over here. Let's click on this center point, that line, and over to this construction line. Let's make sure that these are tangent. Okay. And let's give it a dimension of 11.5. And we can make these two equal to each other. All right, so it should be like, your sketch should look like this now. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, we're going to be patterning all three of these lines let's see, we're going to do the offset, not pattern, offset entities. Make sure you have select chain on and bidirectional. And then make sure your dimension is 2.5. So hit OK. Then let's do an offset again. We're going to turn off select chain and bidirectional. We're going to choose offset, choose these two arcs, and hit OK or enter on your keyboard. Here's a little shortcut. If you hit enter again, it goes back into the offset entities tool. By hitting enter on your keyboard, it typically opens up the last tool you're using. So we can do this process pretty quickly by hitting enter again, select your lines, enter, and then keep repeating that process until we're done. Okay. Now we're going to have to do a little bit of cleanup, but our split line works now, which is nice. You may have to fix your plane 1. If you have any errors, let's go ahead and fix them now. So we're going to edit this sketch here. We can, as long as we have our show relation, let's see, where is it? View sketch relations on, we can go through here and just delete all of the kind of gross yellow relations. And then let's turn our sketches on so we can see here. We can fix that. So on your own, make sure you delete any relations that that are causing an error and re-add them. Looks like our surface extrude. It's looking for the vertex point since we deleted it. We can re-add that here. And then this split line, we need to move that. Move that. Okay. Sweet. All right, we're back on track. The next thing we need to do is create our loft. So I'm going to show this back. What we're going to do is we're going to loft from this edge over here to these split lines, and then back over to these lines. So let's go into our surface loft, our lofted surface. Right click to selection manager. We're going to select, let's see, these edges here. Hit OK. And then once again, right click into our profiles box, hit selection manager, and choose these edges. Okay, And lastly, one more time, we're going to select these ones. And for our guide curves, let's go ahead and turn off our sketch lines. We're going to select the edges of this. This is why we did the split lines on our rectangle. It gives us these guidelines to select. Okay, so I did this on purpose to show you guys what happens a lot. Is this last guide curve is causing us to get an error. If I hit OK, you see guide curve number 7 is invalid. The reason for that is we are lofting into a point here. Both this curve or this arc and this straight line converge into a tangency, which SolidWorks doesn't like. That you can't take two solid objects and then combine them into one. Like basically, if you took two strings and you tried to push them together, it's just going to displace the material. It's not going to all of a sudden merge into one string, right? So let's delete that. And select OK. And we can hide our split line 5 body and split line 1 body. And what we need to do now is let's delete this face. Okay. And we need to use, I'm showing the rectangle again, and my split line 1 again. We need to use the filled surface tool. This is really the best tool for achieving, for taking 4 sides where 2 of them converge into a tangency like we have here. This is the best tool to create that surface. So let's select that edge, this edge, and those 4 edges. And we need to add our constraint curve using this bottom split line here. And hit OK. Actually, yeah, okay. Now if I hide these bodies again, you can see it was able to create this curvature. All right. Now we need to create a surface loft for these 3 faces now. And we are going to be using, let's see, turn my sketches back on. Actually, I don't need those. Sorry, turn your sketches back off. The only thing we need is surface extrude 1 and we can hide these 2. So we need split line 5 and surface extrude 1. Those are the only things we need. So let's do a loft again. Let's choose, oh, sorry, right click, selection manager. We need these 3. So we can't get, we're not going to be able to get this one with the loft. We're going to have to do that with the surface fill. So we're just going to do those 3. And then right click, selection manager again. These 3 edges, hit OK. And let's add our guide curves. Okay. And hit OK. Typically what we want to do is like make sure these are tangent, but because of how we have our guide curves set up and our profile curves, it should already be tangent. But if it's not, we can always go back in here and make sure that these blue lines, which is our end constraint, is set up to tangency. All right. Okay. Now the last thing we need to do is we need to fill this area here. So let's once again do our filled surface. Let's choose this one. Actually, let's see here. I may have an issue. I might have to add a split there, but let's see what it looks like. Okay, yeah, it worked. All right. All right, let's show these surface bodies. We can delete these ones here. We don't need that anymore. All right. And what we want to do is we want to copy this surface from the rectangle. So let's go to offset surface, change our dimensions to 0, and hit OK. When you offset by 0, what you're essentially doing is you're just copying the face. And we don't need this rectangle anymore, so we can right click on the surface body and hit delete body. Okay. Now let's knit these together. Make sure merge entities. Oh, I'm sorry, one second. First, we need to circular pattern this. So let's delete that. Got a little bit ahead of myself. Go to features, circular pattern. Let's choose our axis. This is why we created the axis. And for bodies, let's pick these surfaces here and hit OK. All right, now we can knit them together. Okay, now we have one body. And we don't need this split line anymore, but if you want, you can go ahead and delete that as well. Okay. All right, now on to our flex. Go into Insert, Features, Flex. For our flex input, we're going to choose our surface body. And you'll see that you have some options over here. We have bending, twisting, tapering, stretching. Feel free to play around with these. For this situation, we are just using the bending tool, which is probably the most common one. You can use this tool for creating like watch bands. So say you want to design the strap of your watch band. You can cut the holes out of it, and then you want to flex it for an animation or a rendering. you can use the bending tool like we're going to be doing it now. For our trim plane 1, we want to make sure that this is set to the very edge of our rectangle. So let's choose an endpoint for that. For trim plane 2, we'll do the same thing but on the other side. And then we want to make sure, okay, so this Y value here, this we want to set for basically the middle of this surface. And because this surface is now a 3D, it's not just a 2D plane, it's more 3D, we know that the height, or the total thickness right now, is 0.1, because that was the arc dimension that we made. So half of that would be 0.05. So under this Y rotation origin, let's set that to negative 0.05. What that is basically doing is just kind of lowering that center point of the triad to the middle of our surface. Okay. And then depending on what you're doing with this, you may have to adjust these values here. And to show you what I mean by that, let's go ahead and start adding, start adding some degrees to this angle here. And you can kind of see the magic of this tool as it starts to flex downwards. And what happens if I start rotating this, you can see how I can do different things with it. So I set to the Z value to 90. I'm starting to flex it upwards like that. So maybe you're making a necklace or something. Maybe that's something you can do with that. I'm changing my angle at the top here to 180, and now I get a half circle. But for this exercise, let's rotate it back around. So the Z rotation is 360. And let's see what happened here. I got off kilter a little bit. Okay, I just had to change the degree to reset it. Okay. So we actually wanted to make this 360. We're just going to make a full circle. We're going to leave on hard edges. I find that you really only see a difference with this when you're doing like a tapering. Similar with this flex accuracy, that's more important if you're doing the tapering as well. So let's hit OK. And now we have this band. So let's now let's make this a solid surface, or a solid body, excuse me. Using the filled surface tool, let's select our edges. Hit merge result. Same on the other side. Oop. All right. Okay. And merge result, and then we're going to also check the box that says create solid. And then we just need to cut a hole in it. Now we need to, because this doesn't show as a circle, like it doesn't allow me to, do a concentric option. So what we need to do is we need to create a construction circle. So let's pick 2 points. The first point we can snap to the origin. The second point we can snap to any one of these points here. And then turn that to a construction line. Now when we create another circle, we can dimension that from the new circle we just created. Let's go 2 millimeters. And then extrude cut. And for the direction, let's go through all both. And hit OK. All right. Now, in my design, I made these 2 separate bodies. One would be like a metal, metal stamping, and the other one would be some kind of, plastic insert. So let's do that using let's reveal, or sorry, let's show the sketch that we just created. So we can use that as a reference. And we'll create another sketch on the front plane. Another circle. And then let's offset this circle from our construction circle by something like 0.75. Okay. And then what we can do is insert features split and cut part. Okay. And then the last thing I did is I did an asymmetrical fillet. Asymmetrical means you can pick the direction of the fillet on both sides. So, for example, let's choose for the first dimension, let's go to 3 millimeters. And then the second one, let's choose 1 millimeter. So you can see how the fillet is wrapping around one side of the edge differently than the other. And if it doesn't show up, typically what's happening is you need to hit the reverse direction arrow. Okay. Looks pretty good. Sweet. All right. Last thing, let's just go ahead and set our materials. So right click on the solid body, appearance for the part. I just went to like you can go to like an aluminum. Maybe you want to try like a satin finish. And then for the other part, I used something like let's see, satin finish plastic, and maybe like a dark gray. Okay, I'm just hiding my plane and my axis so I can get a better look at it. Yours might look more like this, which is fine. All right, looking pretty good. Well, that's it for this tutorial. I hope you learned something. I'll see you on the next one.